What's up, guys? I'm going to talk about leathers today, and I'm going to just kind of chat about my thoughts on premium leathers. We've got 3 different smooth leathers here, and then I'll do the same with the grain leathers and then share my overall thoughts. So let's start with the smooth calfskin here. This is the normal calfskin, or the normal quality that you would see without incurring an upcharge. So this is from the Deploy Tannery, and this is a chrome tan calfskin. This has a very fine pore structure. If you look at it, it's got a very nice even luster and gloss throughout the entire shoe. And this has a hand applied patina from Yim Shoemaker. That's not, super important to this conversation, other than just kind of letting you know this is not the tanned color of the leather. Looking at the creasing, you can see it's pretty kind of exactly what you would expect. I wouldn't say that this is amazing and that it's not creasing at all. And I wouldn't say that this is terrible creasing. I'd say that this is perfectly within the margin of error, or the kind of typically expected creasing for a smooth calfskin. You can also get a good look at what the actual pore structure or the grain structure looks like here, and it's a very fine, yet you can feel it as you kind of like rub your finger over it here. Now, moving into what I would consider a premium leather, this does have an upcharge with it. I believe it's probably like in the $300 range, US dollars. I could be wrong there, so definitely check the website or check the shoemaker before you actually jump into anything. But you can see here, this is a vintage 1990s Anine baby box calf. What that means is this is a chrome tan leather. This has a hand applied patina from Mecariello. You can see it has a much finer pore structure as I kind of move it around here, just rubbing your finger over it. You really don't feel the pores or the grain. And that is kind of a combination of the raw materials used for this, as well as the tanning process. Now, this chrome tan process is not used anymore for environmental reasons. It still provides a much different characteristic than the last one we looked at. If you look at the creasing here, I would say that this has a much finer crease than the last one. I think that is kind of a combination of the raw material, the pore structure of that, as well as the tanning process that just provides a much smoother, aesthetically pleasing, I guess, to some result. So between these two, overall, I'd say they're pretty close as far as, having them on your foot. Can anybody really tell a huge difference? Probably not. So let me bring in the shell cordovan now. This gets a common comparison as far as a premium to a smooth calfskin. And I'd say that that's, it's possible, but I definitely don't look at it that way. If I'm looking for a high-end, refined dress shoe, I don't usually decide between calfskin and shell. I see those as two very different materials. So looking at it, this just has a much different aesthetic to it. This is completely smooth to the touch. The creasing is pretty much non-existent. This is just, a roll. It's just where the shell begins to lighten in that part. So the benefits with this only really apply if you want this aesthetic, because these obviously look much different as far as what the materials are. So now let's look at the grain leathers. So this is Horween hatch grain. This is embossed calfskin or printed calfskin. And this is the J.F.&J. Baker Replica Russian Reindeer, which is also calfskin. Now this is 100% veg tanned, whereas the Horween is a combination between veg and a chrome retan. This is Horweenshellcordovan with the embossed or printed hatch grain texture. So let's jump back and start kind of with what I'll say is the typical one. Horween hatch grain. So this typically can be acquired without an additional upcharge, but that may vary shoemaker to shoemaker. So again, confirm that. This is again a veg tan and a chrome tan leather. Texture of hatch grain can be used or applied to different types of raw materials. You can see the creasing and the overall sheen of the leather is pretty even and it's pretty aesthetically pleasing. The creasing here, because the leathers that are used for embossed leathers are typically not the top quality, the creasing can sometimes be a little inconsistent, but that's just something to be aware of or to understand as you're choosing a leather like this. As we look at the Baker Replica Russian Reindeer, this is, you know, it's a pretty stark difference in what the texture, or how kind of prominent the texture is. Other than that, you know, I think from my experiences so far, this performs a lot different than the Horween. This just seems to be a much thicker, more robust leather. Maybe, you know, that's good or bad. I see Horween as a versatile leather. This leather, I think, is a little more on the robust side, and it kind of stays there. Now, looking at the shell cordovan version, I'd be hard pressed to say that I'd look at these two and say, I can't decide. Like, it's between these two leathers. Like, I'd either pick between shell cordovan and say, like, do I want a smooth shell or an embossed shell? Do I want a smooth calf or an embossed calf? Very rarely am I gonna look and say, do I want a textured calfskin or a textured shell cordovan? They just perform so much different because of the raw material and the characteristics of the tannage. I think the important takeaway for kind of how I decide, as well as how you can decide, is even if you don't have experience with all these leathers and you haven't, you know, already had shoes in them, reaching out to folks on different forums, asking for pictures and looking at videos of shoes in that material that have been heavily worn, been out in the elements, and see how they age, see how they crease, and see what that leather performs like. Having that similar conversation with the actual shoemaker, expressing to them what it is you're going to use the shoe for, what type of performance or what type of aesthetic you'd like to accomplish, and see what they would recommend, and see if they can share any examples of past shoes that they've made in that material. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments what your favorite textured or smooth leathers are, as well as your thoughts on premium leathers, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.